Alrighty, guys, let me know if you guys can see me and if you can hear me. Then we will kind of go from there. Last week, hello, I mean, you can hear me? Yes, awesome. So last week when we tried this, YouTube had a worldwide whatever. So we get to have a take two today. So um, hopefully we've got some people on that haven't actually gotten to join before. What I want to do here is basically give you guys the floor to ask any kind of questions relating to crystals, metaphysics, angels, spirit guides, chakras, anything that honestly that you can think of. I try not to answer personal questions. However, I really like to teach people based off the experiences that I've had. So if there's any stories that I can tell, I'm more than happy to do so. As you guys are logging on here, go ahead and submitting your questions, and then we will kind of go on through there. And then as you guys think of stuff, go ahead and throw it on the comment bar. And then as we go, we will just kind of take it one way at a time. So other than that, we don't have a whole lot of ground rules. I hope that we get to have fun with this. So I appreciate you guys who joined in last week and are back again this week. So I totally appreciate you there. Let's see. I'm sure more people will continue to hop on. Looks like the first question I see here is, I got to highlight it so I know where to leave off. Do Dreamcatchers get full? Chelsea, I'm going to have to say no. However, when it comes to energy, energy is always going to be absorbed. And so if you feel compelled to cleanse it, smudge it, I totally would, because it's kind of like giving any other tool that you have a fresh start. So I've never heard of them getting full. And if I actually kind of ponder for a second, all I can picture is a vibration that could easily be cleared out, not necessarily something that's full. So I would totally simply smudge it and set the intention to get a fresh start and go from there. Sky, do you think so many people are getting sick because so many people are becoming more awake and ascending? So that is a really interesting question. If I were to go back all the way to like February, honestly, I did not see anything with COVID happening here in our country. I mean, I figured maybe a little bit here and there, but I really wasn't too concerned about everything that's actually happening now, because back then it didn't seem possible. And then once society started emitting all of this fear, I remember being like, oh no, oh no. If individuals can manifest and create kind of their reality, married couples are known to co-create, co-manifest. And so what I started seeing back in March or late February was, oh my gosh, if as a collective, are we going to actually manifest a bigger problem because of how much thought and fear energy is going out? Now, to touch base on people getting sick due to enlightenment, typically people, as they go through an enlightened process, are less prone to getting sick. I think if anything, the illness is what is causing so many more people to actually go through a spiritual awakening, because people that have never been faced with these kind of situations are literally having to think outside the box. We're not facing anything that we have experienced. And so the human ego going into that fight or flight mode has had a lot to do as far as learning how to adapt with this. I would imagine that there's going to be a bigger divide as this kind of goes on between enlightened people and unenlightened people. And for the past 5 or 6 years, I figured that during let's just say like the mid-20s that are upcoming, I knew that something was going to happen where this shift was going to take place, and that if you weren't enlightened, it's like people are going home. And now I see what could possibly be like a catalyst of what could be triggering that. So as far as people actually getting sick, the best thing that I can do to tell you guys as far as healing the body is maintain high vibration, gratefulness, take care of yourself. Viruses are extremely difficult to actually combat because the author's name is, I want to say, Janet. It starts with a Y. Shoot me a message afterwards. She wrote a book called Between Two Worlds, and this one might be more for like mediumship development, but this person, I believe she grew up incredibly Catholic, and then she had her own kind of experiences, and then she really literally dedicated her life to teaching people to use their psychic abilities. If people are wanting to develop the mediumship, this book is actually awesome for that. Personally, I have learned so much through psychic medium Kelly Miller. Obviously, you guys that know me through the store know that we work together, but 5 years ago, I was just like all of you, sitting at home on my computer, watching her do Q&As, and she has wrote the program, which she calls Enlightenment Academy, and she has literally touched bases on all of these metaphysical, spiritual topics, and she's funneled all of this information in. And as I personally have been looking out for new people to learn from different sources, as I'm watching, listening, learning, I'm realizing how amazing the program that Kelly put together really is, because it's everything kind of all in one. So that's kind of a simple solution there. I could send you a link to the book that Janet had wrote, but if you're interested in actually developing and learning more about the psychic stuff, I would tell you, Tanya, right off the bat, learn as much as you can about the chakra system. So I think her name is Anadia Judith. She wrote a book called The Wheels of Life. And this is a book that I think it was actually released in like the late 70s, maybe the 80s. Back then, she had to have been completely ahead of the game, where everybody thought that this woman is absolutely bonkers. And then I want to say maybe like 10 years ago, she actually did a revision on the book, and now it's like an incredible seller. So there's a lot of information there. Any of you guys wanting to learn more about your actual psychic senses or your intuitive side, dive into the chakra system. There is so much information there. If it's new to you, I would totally run with it. Diane, question, what are these chakra numbers 1 through 7, or what does that mean? So if people are looking to learn about the chakra system, there are 7 main chakras. If you're referring to them being numbered, I'm used to looking at like a chart that has them by color. And so I hear people like, what's the blue one? If you've got something that goes kind of by the numbers, all that means is the root chakra, starting from the bottom, is going to be number 1. The sacral is going to be number 2. Solar plexus is number 3. The throat, or the heart, throat, third eye, crown, kind of goes up from there. I've really dove into kind of trying to master the main 7, but once you learn those, there's like 11 or 12 with the main physical body, and then they literally come out there in our arms, our hands, our legs. There's so many energy centers, and so if you can kind of hone in on learning the main 7, that will totally kind of go from one to another. Sammy Joe, are you a crystal healer? Now, I don't specifically identify as a crystal healer. However, when it comes to labels, I have always kind of struggled with society throws so many labels out on what it means, and then people have to kind of fall into these roles. And so on my own journey, I've always been drawn to crystals. When I decided to come forward and start working with people, I became a certified Reiki master, where I would then use crystals and then work with Reiki energy to work with people. And after I dove into that, I realized for me, it was wonderful to learn. However, it was not my truth. And that's when I created the system. I use crystals, which are actually these guys. There's about 80 in the bag, and that's what I use to conduct my readings in person and the daily readings that you see me post. However, if you look at, like, for example, the Native Americans, their shaman, their healers were also the psychic mediums of the tribe. They would always resort to elements of the earth to then use for healing. And so in a really indirect way, I guess you could say, sure, I do crystal healing work. If you were to come visit me with the store, I'm totally going to take you to the crystals, talk about, you know, what you might be going through, whether it be emotionally, physically, spiritually, to try to gauge which crystals vibrations are going to help bring you back into alignment. And so in a really weird way, I guess I'd have to say yes. Going on here, how do our chakras open without meditation? So, Brianne, good question. You kind of have to think about it like this. As a baby, a toddler, one of your first chakras that is going to open is the root chakra. And that deals with survival mode. And so as babies, as toddlers learn to feel safe within their environment, comfortable with the people that they're around, they become kind of grounded. As you go through life, let's just say if your sacral, the number 2 chakra, is all tied to your creativity and sexuality, that's probably not going to open when you're a toddler. However, when you start to go through puberty, that chakra is probably going to blow open. It's kind of one of these things that happens throughout life. However, for me, my life, my early 20s was a bit of a crapshoot. And so what happened then, combination of life, my experiences and trauma, whatever was left to open up all just literally blew open at once. And that is when I started having so many more of these spiritual experiences. And back then I didn't have a clue what was actually going on. So for you as an adult, once you become awake or enlightened, your chakras are going to be open. However, they're going to fluctuate in energy. And so for me to do intuitive readings, I want all of my energy to be up here. I want to use my crown chakra to tap into source, higher knowledge, consciousness, my third eye to see things, to picture, imagine. The last thing that I want during a reading is to feel. I will kind of tap into that every once in a while, but for me, honestly, I don't like it during a reading, because if I'm doing mediumship and you're crying next to me, I'm a very empathic person. And so if I pick up, or my empathy picks up on what you're feeling, it's going to throw me off here because all of my energy is going to be in the heart, empathizing, feeling. And so when I go into my individual sessions, I literally visualize my heart energy center coming down super small to like a pinhole, to where what happens is that allows the rest of the energy to these centers to become larger. So once you can kind of manipulate your energy a little bit, you really don't have to worry about them being open. When it comes to balancing the chakras, so if somebody were to tell you, oh, your heart isn't open, for example, there's pink and green crystals are the 2 main colors that I would send you to kind of help bring that energy back open. But you can also use foods. The chakra system literally ties to the colors of food. So for one example, if you knew that your heart was too cold, like you're not feeling things, you're apathetic, basically, heartless, I would tell you to have some steamed broccoli, because we're going to want to warm that up so that it opens up. If you are the other side, where you're getting your teeth kicked in because you're constantly like, oh, I just want to love, I want to love, I want to love, then you're left hurt, used, and abused, I would tell you to have a salad, because if you think about temperature, that will kind of cool it down, where heat is going to open it up. Some of my perception there comes from Ayurvedic medicine, where they have a system that they call the doshas, which are very similar to the chakra system. The chakras resonate so much more for me when it terms of dealing with the emotions in the physical body and how that mind-body-soul connection. So when it comes to other ways, ask for it. intention. So if you recognize that something's not functioning properly, you can set the intention, okay, help me open this. Ask your spirit guides, ask God, ask universe. But you can also look for the foods and crystals. That's probably the best ways to get them fired up if you know that one of them is either wonky or smaller than you would prefer. Next question, Chelsea. Tips for general goal setting for the remaining year. I haven't set any, and I feel the pull to do so. So I will tell you, Chelsea, drop the timeline, because what's going to happen is if you're not very grounded and you say, I have until the end of the year to do this, you're going to procrastinate, just as you procrastinated all of this year to set a goal. And so what I would advise you to do is think long and hard about what will bring you joy. Because right now, it's like you're probably looking for the motivation to get this going. I want the motivation to come from within. And so if you really think about what's something I would love to learn, what's something I've always wanted to do, what's something that would make me feel fulfilled, what's something that I always say that I want to do and I just don't. If you set the intention, okay, I really, really want to do it, and you can tell in your heart that it's something that feels good, you're not going to need a timeline, because chances are you'll have it done by the end of the month. And then you'll be like, wow, you know what? I can do more. Also, keep it simple. So anytime somebody wants to make changes, they're usually going to be burnt out by fear, not having the motivation to do so. I always say small changes lead to big changes. So people that want to change their diet, for example, you are going to set yourself up for failure if you try to commit to having 3 meals a day of all whatever you need to eat, right? Have 3 meals, but have maybe start with 1 meal with something in that meal better. That way you're still getting the stuff you want, but you're also getting something that you feel that you need. When you can do a week or two that, then say, hey, we're going to go 2 meals a day. I'm going to try to get something better. And then go to 3 meals. Like I said, small change always manifests into bigger change. But if you try to jump into those big changes or big goals right off the bat, you're going to end up frustrated, and then you're going to give up, and then you're going to beat up on yourself. And the next year, you are not going to want to set any goals. So keep it simple. I feel like in your heart, you're going to know the little things that you've let go of that you'd want to probably get back into. Deb, how do you know if you have angels around you? So I will tell you, there is spirit everywhere. They're going to be always around you. When it comes to angels, angels and spirit guides are kind of very, very similar. Let's just say that angels have mastered the experiences of being the spirit guide, so they get to kind of level up onto what's next. There's a few different ways. For me, I hear a lot. And so anytime there is a quick shift, the angelic beings or spiritual beings, they vibrate at a much higher frequency than we do as human. And so when they come around, I will start by hearing like this high-pitched frequency, and that if they're moving, it will go from here to over here. Or what's really strange is sometimes Kelly will come out of her office, I'll turn, and I'll hear like this, and you'll kind of like watch like something go out the front door, and it's like, what the heck was that? And then she'll mention like, oh yeah, this guy came in for, he would want a mediumship talking to his son. I'm like, that's what that was. And so people that hear are going to have those experiences. If you are the empath, you're going to feel, you'll probably also hear because it's such a different shift. But if you're sitting there and you're like, something feels different, and I don't know what it is, but I really like it. Angels are going to feel loving, holy. I don't know how to describe it. Safe. If it was a negative being, you're going to have the opposite reaction. And so you kind of have to know your own physical body to know how you might pick up on these subtle vibrations. But once you figure it out, you will notice them literally probably at least once a day. The other thing to look out for is numbers. Mine are always communicating with me through numbers, replicating numbers. Angels specifically, you're going to see 444. That's what it means for me. When I see that, like on a license plate or a clock or a total or somewhere, if I go back a few moments, I'm thinking of something where an angel would give me kind of the sign that I needed. And when you can connect the dots, you're like, wow, that's what that was. Cool. Let's keep moving on. Nate, uses for the harmonizers. So harmonizers, they are typically, the ones I've had experience with are actually shungite, but they make them in selenite. I've seen them now in black tourmaline. You're going to continue to see them on the market as people kind of figure out more uses for them. So the easiest or most common use for the harmonizers is to hold one in each hand. They will not only act as grounding, but they act as conductors. And so people that are trying to meditate, it kind of helps create like a flowing channel. I would recommend for me, I would probably rather prefer the higher vibe, such as like the selenite, especially if I was going to use it for meditating. The black tourmaline for me personally has never been one that I want to use while meditating, but the shungite is actually cool. Let's say it's very purifying. And so if you were working on an emotional issue that you wanted to, let's say, let go, and you were using it to, or using meditation as your tool, or even better yet, addiction. Let's say you wanted to kick a habit, quit drinking, for example. If you use the harmonizers, shungite, that's for purification, it helps purify the physical body, but it also helps kind of remove some of the emotional stuff that energetically the body's going to hold on to. And so it's different ways of purifying, but most commonly the harmonizers are the tool for meditating, just to kind of have balance, symmetry, and then it keeps that flow going. Sky, what is your take on lizard people? So for most people who might not know what that statement is referring to, they are called reptilians. I will tell you, they are here. If any of you have taken the time to do a little bit of research, I will tell you that what you have read is probably correct. I was trying to do a daily reading last week, and all I kept getting was that not only has the mask fallen, but they're shedding their skin. And I'm like, who? Reptilians. And I'm like, what does that mean? Shedding skin. They don't want to be seen. As far as shedding their skin, I honestly think that they're getting ready to hightail out. There's enough of them literally within the government. You look at foreign embassies over, I don't even want to say specifics. Do some digging. But like I said, it's going to be stuff that you're going to be kind of questioning at first, and then you're going to realize, oh my gosh, this makes sense because, and you'll start connecting all these other dots. I'm not necessarily sure where they come from, but they do play a role in government, world governments. It's kind of like a combination of like a secret society. And I know that this sounds absolutely crazy, but it's one of those things, we all come from somewhere. We all have different gifts. Earth is kind of like where we get to come for school. And so you look at where other places might be sending people here to also learn, have this experience. My personal take is that they are not out for our best interest. They have agendas of their own. If Earth is going through an ascension process, where right now we are on this three-dimensional plane, and some of these vibrations are actually shifting as a whole, which means we're literally kind of going to more of a fifth dimension reality, so to speak, where instant manifestation happens. And so people that are already enlightened or going through their awakening process, they're already kind of starting to tiptoe in that fifth dimension, meaning you'll have a thought like, ooh, I want to have popcorn. And then you're like, you get off the phone and you turn around, and literally this happened a couple months ago at the store. I was on the phone. I never eat popcorn. And while I'm booking an appointment, I'm like, I really, is there a bag in the back? Like, I really want this. I'm going to get it. There was no doubt in my mind that I was going to have popcorn. I hung up the phone. I turned around, the front door opened. Gentleman walks in selling popcorn. And I'm like, did I manifest that? Was that an intuitive hit? But it's kind of like at that fifth dimension, boom, boom, boom. So as we tend to vibe higher, I think it is kind of kicking them to the curb because they know that the more people that are enlightened, they can't be here. They don't stand a chance. So I hope that kind of answers your question. And then maybe if there's some of you on here that aren't necessarily familiar, just look into the reptilians. It's fascinating. I'll admit the first, I was in an old relationship, and when my old partner brought it up, I remember being like, really? You don't have better stuff to do with your time than look at this shape-shifting reptile people, basically. And then I started watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, there might be something to this. So if any of you guys are inspired to learn, go do some digging. It's interesting. So moving on. Joni, how do you know, I lost my spot. How do you know if you have met your soulmate? So this is one of those things, I'll tell you, typically it's something that you're going to feel. However, if you're referring to romantically, a lot of times people have this connection that feels at a soul level, which is why we have a soulmate. I'll tell you, two of my best friends are women. We both know we're soulmates, where that doesn't necessarily have to be intimate or romantically inclined. We are just, we know that from a past life, we've had interactions together. We were either family together, we went through past experiences together, we're back now. When I first started working with Kelly, and she would talk about how she was a Native American scalper in a past life, like literally riding a horse, scalping people. I'm like, oh my gosh, what if you offed me? And that's why now I have hair and we have to work together and we have to be friends as like paying karmic debt. Like you did this before, now we have to get along. When it comes to soulmates, they're also possible. You'll have mates, but not ones that you necessarily vibe with for very long. They come, you have this connection on a vibrational frequency. You just know that there's something deeper, but you can't put your a feeling or words on it. I describe those as soul connections. Now, there are also karmic connections, which means a lot of times people will fall in love and they'll be like, oh my God, this man is my soulmate. And then they find out that this dude is like a turd in a box, literally. And they're like, but I thought he was my soulmate. It's like, no, that was a karmic lesson. That was a karmic mate, basically, where they come in. Their only purpose was to teach you this lesson. You learn the lesson, then you get to go about your merry way. So if you think it is, I wouldn't question it. I also wouldn't necessarily go looking for those type of connections, because energetically, like will always attract like. People that go looking for these, they see anything that they want to see, which always sets people up for failure. So make sure, Joni, that you're in a place of allowance to see and feel and kind of help you decipher which might be which. Chelsea, I have heard to leave lemons around the house to help tell positive energy. Lemon won't get bad if energy is good. Any truth to that? So that is one I personally have not done as an experiment. However, fruit in general can pick up vibrations extremely easily, which is why if you have one bad orange or an apple that starts to go bad in a bowl, it will literally poison everything that it touches, because it spreads. When it comes to energy, I've seen people do the same thing with water. I've seen them put water around and then actually freeze the water. And if you look at the structure of how the water freezes, if you sat here and spoke all kinds of loving words to a bottle of water and then froze it, and then you had this cup sitting out and you said all these negative things and then you froze it, you would see a difference in the structure of how the ice forms. So for me, I have to do my own little experiments. I'm like, okay, this is what happy looks like. This is sad. I would then have to put out like a lemon, for example, on its own, and then see, okay, this was the good experience, this was the bad, and then kind of gauge in between. One thing that I also do, and not necessarily is going to tell you if you have good or bad energy, But if you light a candle, you can pay attention to which way the wick burns, which way the smoke might go. If it's flickering, all this stuff have different meanings, which can tell you what's positive, what's negative. And since I've been doing so much making of candles, I think that this will almost be like a video or some kind of workshop on its own, how to work with them, how to read them. As far as the lemon, it's totally worth a shot. So I'll tell you, go for it. And if you come up with a solution or you have results or answers, let me know. I would love to hear from it. Christy, is anyone else having voice issues? Not sure if you are referring to losing your voice or if you're having like hearing issues with my audio. I will just touch base quickly. When it comes to voice issues, that's all going to be the throat chakra. So if your voice is physically giving you issues, think about what you're not saying. Think about what you want to say and you won't allow it. People that are in controlling relationships and not allowed to speak their truth, it's going to start small. They're going to start losing their voice, or they'll get laryngitis like 5 times in a year. And it's like, wow, what's happening? That's an issue with the throat chakra. Always start small. So I'll tell you, Christy, right now, if you're having the issue there, work on balancing your throat chakra. And I'm going to do a little finger wagging here because you want to get that back in positive, like good harmony before you develop something worse. Some of the lifelong issues that people develop if they don't speak their truth, thyroid issues. So if you start to notice any kind of issue now, get that in check to prevent bigger issues down the road. Let's see. What are your recommendations for recalling visions and dreams? So Megan, if you're a relatively visual person and you are having a lot of dreams, I will totally recommend a journal, diary, log them, write them. People that do have a lot of really vivid dreams, and you start to document them, you will notice signs, you will notice parallels. Typically, once spirit knows how to communicate with you, they will, they're more inclined to, once they realize what you understand, they're like, okay, she doesn't see us in the waking state, we're going to do this in the dream. And so if there's parallels, it's a little bit easier. When it comes to dream recall, I would try, it's a stone called apophyllite. It kind of looks like a clear point, but there's like 4 sides. Super high vibe, really neat. You could put something like that either in your pillowcase or literally under your bed so that the point is pointing up. Dream recall, what else? There was another one, astrophyllite, perfect. People who, a lot of times you don't even realize it, but people, they go to bed and it's like the soul kind of leaves the body and goes on a little vacation. You have this experience, the human body stays here, but on a spiritual plane, you're off all over the place. And so the astrophyllite is actually one that helps people recall, remember, and then kind of helps enable them to do the astral work. So if you're looking for a couple crystals there, I would totally give that a shot. Let's see, Christina, oh, nope. Donna, tell me about Marion Crystals. So I'm looking at my desk here. I usually have one sitting out. I don't see it. It's probably back behind me. Marion points, if you go back to, this is going to go way back to like Atlantis, for example, ancient civilizations where even though they were thousands of years ago, these ancient civilizations, like the Egyptians, for example, these guys were so ahead of their time to where they call, if you look at Illimarian, a lot of times you will see sometimes like a little triangle, or you'll see like these little chevron point, little chevrons like in a pattern that go up. Each one kind of means something different. If you look at modern day technology, I honestly believe that the Marion points, the crystals, are kind of comparable to what we would have as like a flash drive or a memory card that you put in a camera, something that you put into a computer. They hold information. So if you have one, I will totally tell you to meditate with it. Set the intention that you are able to receive any information that might actually be stored in that crystal. So many people will talk about how they are like little hard drives. They have information. Some of them even have like what we call a key. And so there's like a little spot where it's like your thumbnail would fit in as you hold this point, and it's like if you put your thumb in there, they call it the key. It literally kind of like activates it, and then as you meditate with this, you are able to then receive this information that's stored there. So very, very, very fascinating. Super quick story. We had a student, a customer that came into the store. I think the boy was probably like 6, and this kid, you could tell, was so ahead of his time. He was so sensitive. He was so compassionate. But the way he articulated his words, it's like, how is this a child? And I remember watching him. His mom had told him that you can pick out one crystal. And I watched him do a couple circles around our tower that has all the tumbled stuff. And I mentioned to an old employee, I'm like, how much you want to bet that boy's going to go for a Marion point? Sure enough, he went exactly 4. He made a couple loops and went right where I want this one. And she looked at me like, how'd you know that? I'm like, it's not that I knew it. It was predictable based on this kid already having this knowledge in him and knowing how to use it. He went for the tool that would help open him up. And so as I'm fortunate enough to get to see these kind of experiences, it blows my mind every single time. So Lemurians are super cool. If any of you guys have them, they look like glass. They are so clear, like significantly clearer than most of the clear crystal points. That's how I can tell the true Lemurians. Christine, well, you're welcome there. Moving down. So do Dreamcatchers work better with crystals on them? So when it comes to the Dreamcatchers, to kind of build off what I had mentioned with them earlier, everything comes down to vibration. And so if I were going to purchase a Dreamcatcher for myself, I'm going to want one that is not only handmade, I want mine made by an actual Native American. Because to me, that's going to have passion involved. It's going to have the original intention put into it while they made it. The ones that are made with crystals are going to have a vibration, but I can't say that you're better off one way or another. It's kind of like what you're drawn to. I am not a hunter by any means. However, the Dreamcatcher that I bought was actually handmade from a local native, and he was so excited to tell me that the antler that he used to kind of hang the design from was from a deer that he himself had also got. And so it's so neat knowing like this entire process came from him. Anything that makes it more personal is going to vibe higher. And so if you get a run-of-the-mill Dreamcatcher from Walmart, I'm not going to say that it's not going to work, but just think about how much better the vibration is going to be from one that is either handmade or one that has the crystals on it. Do I do crystal readings in Omaha? If so, where? So Penny, I work out of Awakenings on 147th in West Maple. I do them in person a couple days a week, but I also offer them over Zoom, FaceTime, or even just over the phone. If you go to my website, which is psychiccurtis.com, it's got my availability, booking schedule, prices, all that. You can easily lock down your own appointment or pop into the store and set one up that way. Donna, I get a high-pitched ringing in my right ear when I have a message from angels. So this is one of those things, you might be actually responding to something that I talked about earlier, but Donna, if you're able to hear that, then I'll tell you guys, it's kind of like hearing that high-pitched frequency. When you notice it, I would stop and acknowledge it, and then put yourself like, okay, why are you here? And then see if you feel something, see if you hear something, see if you know something. If it's just to give you love, you'll feel like love. It's so neat. Kelly is asking, any advice on to stop having nightmares? So I will tell you, even in your sleep, you're probably not very grounded. If people who have a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear in their waking state, those thoughts are still going to circle in the subconscious. And so when you're asleep, those same thoughts funnel into these really weird dreams, nightmares sometimes, to where what I would recommend here is I sleep with black tourmaline under my mattress for a few different reasons. It's very grounding. Doing this type of work, doing readings, it's like if I go to sleep, I don't want to be in a place of allowance for spirit to come through and try to talk to me while I'm sleeping, because then I'm doing all this work during the night energetically, and then I will wake up not being rested. And so black tourmaline under the mattress helps me to stay grounded, but it also helps prevent too much energy from going up here. That's one thing I'd recommend. And then I know I spoke about it before, but white howlite is my go-to stone for anyone, adults to kids, having nightmares, insomnia, sleep disturbances, anything. Those are the two that I'm going to recommend that you do try. And so there's also, you can try aromatherapy if you haven't tried oils. I would think about what calms you. I love water, for example. I'm a Cancer, and so water is very calming. I love the sound of water fountains, aquariums, flowing water that way. If you have an earth element that you find calming, play that while you're sleeping and see if the physical body is calmer, to where it also helps kind of calm the mind. As far as essential oils, I love lavender. It's very calming, relaxing, but it also has a little bit of that sedative property to it as well. That nightmares and sleep issues suck. I've had issues in the past, and it's common as people go through awakenings fast. They will have these phases that just kind of throw them off, where it's like they're not sleeping. So a couple things there. I hope it actually helps you. What does a dark redstone used for a pendulum mean? So when it comes to pendulums, typically, when people want to pick one out, I will just advise that they stand back and just watch and ask spirit to show one that is for you. And so what happens is, they'll, like all of ours at the store, hang. What happens is you'll have one that will start kind of dangling. And it's like, seriously? It's like it's speaking to you. Unless people are looking for specific healing properties, I kind of take and I throw away everything that I know of crystals when it comes to a pendulum, because I want you to have the experience that you love. And so if I'm like, you need this pendulum, you're like, well, I hate purple. I'm like, but you need this one, you're not going to want to use it. If you are drawn to a pendulum that is dark red, that would probably tell me that you want to stay more grounded, so that if you're going to use your intuition, it's not so flighty, if that makes sense. Reds are typically used with the root chakra. And so anybody looking for stability, grounding, getting their anchor in the ground, basically, are going to kind of be more drawn towards the reds. Sky, do I think mirrors are or can be a portal? And how do I know if a mirror has become a portal? So I know psychics who absolutely hate mirrors, because it is kind of like insight or looking into another dimension. I think that there are negative things that if something becomes opened, knowing you, Sky, it's something that you're going to know something's not right with that. If it's the empath, they're going to feel that something's not right with this mirror. There's really not going to be any telltale signs. But if you go into, let's say, a 250-year-old hotel, this mirror is fine, and you go into another room and you see a mirror and you're like, I do not like this at all. That's because energetically you're picking up on something. When it comes to portals, what that means is it's a gateway, basically, for spirit on the other side, usually not for your best interest, to kind of come and go. And so a lot of times people that use Ouija boards, for example, and don't know how to set the parameters on what is allowed and what's not allowed, they end up opening a portal somewhere in the home. It could be from a mirror. It could be in the basement. It could be the front door. I mean, wherever they tend to open will kind of come and go. But unless you are experienced with actually working with them, I can tell you right now, I would probably sense that something's not right, but I wouldn't know how to validate it, and I definitely wouldn't know how to close it. I ran into a situation a couple years ago where there was this place where stuff was literally appearing to me in a public location outside when I was walking my dog. And it kind of started to like really weird me out because it was a time and it was a place. And then when I had a friend come out and look at it with me, she's like, I don't know what this is, but this isn't right. And she pointed exactly to where this stuff was coming from. And the spirit that was presenting himself literally had the ability to open and close this portal. And so he knew how to get a hold of me. He would open this portal, literally throw out a ball once, threw out a doll eye at one point, which is the craziest thing I've ever had roll up to my foot. He knew how to catch my attention. And so these portals are strange, but it's not something I would want to have in my own home. I'll tell you that. When it comes to mirrors, I think they definitely can be, but it's all about intention. And so it would probably take black magic or witchcraft to actually set the intention on a mirror. I'm opening you up. You're going to use this as a way to come and go. Chances are you probably wouldn't encounter one of those type of portals unless you knowingly put yourself in a place that was not a good location or somewhere that has a history of a lot of negative beings or toxic entities. So let's see, I totally lost my spot on the side. Bear with me, guys. Wow, these questions just keep flowing. I got to start cranking out some answers here. Could your candles be used for meditation purposes? Absolutely. So right now, for example, I have one burning in front of me with the intention of honoring spirit. Well, I want to communicate and talk about stuff that I know regarding spirit. When I use candles in the office, I always want to honor spirit by lighting a white candle. If you're wanting to use candles for meditation, there's one that I make that's called High Vibes that has blue kyanite. I did that combination because for me, that's the first stone that I used when I started learning to meditate. So it's kind of special to me that way. Let's see. Wow, more candle stuff. We'll have to run with it, guys. Chelsea, elbow pain is linked to what and what crystals will help? So when it comes to elbows, kind of a few different things. So when it comes to crystals, if it was a bone issue or a nerve issue, I would tell you go for, it's called aragonite, A-R-A. It's usually brown with like light brown stripes. There's also one for the Native Americans use, it's called tree agate, which they use for that blood, bone, and nerve issues. Looking at kind of a spiritual meaning, I would say there's probably more of, anytime something happens in the joint, I look at what could possibly cause. And so the elbows, it's kind of hit and miss. What side of the body is on? Hit and miss. If it's both, I would have to say you're resisting something where it's kind of like you're trying to push. And as you push back, energy is going to get jammed here. When it comes to emotional side, if it's more on your right side, I would say it's probably going to be more relationship driven. If it's more on the left side of the body, probably more career based, maybe kids if you have kids, family stuff. It's difficult to really know like the source of pain because a lot of times people will go to a doctor with excruciating pain, for example, and the doctors are like, you're fine. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. And it's extremely frustrating because you're like, oh, no, I hurt. A lot of times it is energy that begins to manifest or isn't actually flowing. So think about that as a couple things. Let's see. I dream as a child, but not as an adult. I do not. So Deanna, ask for it. Ask your guides. Okay, I got so much out of my dreams as a kid. I need to open that back up. If you're into crystals, look up crystals that you are drawn to that are resonating with the third eye. That's where you're going to get your visions from. If you don't like a lot of what you see, or you don't want to recognize your own insight, the third eye will kind of start to shrink down, which could also be an indicator of why you're not having those dreams. So that hopefully that answers that. Chris is asking, am I worried basically about the outcome of the election? Nope. It's on a plane. It's like with the last election, for example, a lot of people weren't happy. But at the end of the day, we know that the right man for the job, for what we need as a collective society in order to, basically, in order to get to that fifth dimension, we need everything within the government to be exposed. We need everything to have this flashlight shine on all the stuff that's not working. And so in order for this to happen, people got to get mad. People got to get worked up. People got to get riled up, because if people aren't passionate about how they feel, they're not going to make change that we need. And so whether you like Trump or not, that man got the entire world talking. And so if it's his time to be out, well, he was brought in to do his job. And then we know that the next person coming in will do the exact same thing. You focus on you, your own reality, and let everything outside of your control happen. Don't respond emotionally. Don't respond. Don't give too much of your energy, because asking if I'm worried is going to say that you could be kind of worried, when I'm like, oh, no, that's going to lower your vibes. Stay thankful, stay grateful, and just assume that we will always have the right person for the job, and that it is out of our hands, but we're in good hands, if that makes sense. Surrender. Kristen, what does water signify in dreams? I recently dreamt of a big ocean wave crashing into a glass between any insight or meaning. So water, fluid, moving. The fact of water crashing, it's kind of like waves can be very peaceful, but if they're destructive, I would look at what could have been destructive. There's a website that we like to go to. It's called dreammoods.com. It's not always the easiest to navigate, but it has like a search bar where you can search like some of the little clues that you've seen. Look up crashing into a glass wall or large waves, and see if any of those descriptions resonate with what you're thinking, what you're feeling, what you're hoping for. Bonnie, what is the best way to get started with the crystals for focus, anxiety, and clarity? So if you are new to crystals, I will tell you right off the bat, if you have an opportunity to come to the store, or if you can shop on the website, ignore anything you know about logic. Literally, think like a kid. People who get to know me know that I am very childlike at heart, but that's also because everybody has this inner child. We need to honor the inner child. It's losing touch with that magicness where people become, well, I'm too serious for that. No. Life is meant to enjoy. And so I would encourage you, think like a kid. If you walk into a shop and you're like, ooh, I love this one. Like this, for example. I love this. It's a blue kyanite, green kyanite. This was when I was like, and this is mine. Next, and we're just going to keep going. Didn't even think about it. If you think like a kid, you are always going to be drawn towards exactly what you need. If you think like an adult, you'd pick this up, you'd love it, and then you'd read a card and be like, oh, well, I don't have thyroid issues, and I don't have this, I don't have that. And then you'll find a card that resonates, and then you pick up a stone and you're like, oh, this is the ugliest yellow I've ever seen, but it's what I need. No, I will always tell you, go for exactly what you need, or what you're drawn to, because there's a frequency that's pulling you in to give you the balance that you're actually looking for. So when it comes to focus, anxiety, and clarity, I'll give you two: rainbow fluorite and amethyst. The rainbow fluorite is wonderful for both that focus and clarity, and then amethyst is overall wonderful for anxiety. Practicing mudras. Personally, Nate, it kind of comes down to, that's a good question. It kind of comes down to mantras in the same way of what you say, you speak into existence. And so if I tell people, sometimes you have to kind of screw your mind a little bit, where if you're having a lot of anxiety, you have to sit and tell yourself, I'm safe, I'm okay, I'm anytime you can have a mantra, for example, like I'm healthy, I'm happy, healthy, and wise. That kind of helps you manifest more things that leave you feeling healthy, happy, wise. Um, Now, if you look at some of the older stuff, like the Sanskrit stuff, where I can't pronounce half of them. And so personally, I get frustrated trying to force myself to say something. And then if I stutter, then obviously you kind of have an element of shame, your vibes come down. I am so one of those people. You have to pursue what you think is right. So if you're drawn to using or practicing using these, go for it. But if you, like me, and you try and you get frustrated, it's not your truth, let it go. There's plenty of other tools out there. Christina, you made each of your kids Dreamcatchers with crystals. I love it. It's kind of like when I talked about wanting something that was handmade. You putting that loving energy is going to help your children so much more than something that someone else would have just bought and given them. So I absolutely love that for you. Donna, Marion Crystals. We have some at the shop. There are some that are small at Awakenings. We also have some that are larger. And then I just found they call them smoky Lemurian, where they're not a smoky quartz, but they have a smoky kind of tint to them. And so they're special, they're unique. Sorry, I'm in the middle of trying to go on to the next question, and then I see my Helen. Thank you. What do I do for headaches? Crystals, meditations, oils, etc. So when it comes to headaches, that's something that I have dealt with a lot of my life, to where I have finally gotten better. Last time I had a headache, I went for the fluorite. So when I mentioned that earlier with looking for clarity, it works great with the mind. There's also one that I've gone to called goldstone, which is a man-made stone, but it is made from quartz and clear quartz and copper. And so copper helps with like the circulation. Both of those I personally have had good luck with minimizing headaches or carrying it. And then a few hours later, you're like, wow, that's actually better. When it comes to the meditations, for example, if you were looking for actual headache advice, I would look on meditating for surrender, release. Typically, emotional headaches are driven from either fighting for control, overthinking, overburning. You have cycles that's just like going. That's obviously not going to help you. And so if you can look at things to calm you with meditation, positive affirmations. When it comes to the essential oils, I would tell you, go for the ones that are grounding for you. All of the oils come from the earth. And so, yes, each oil might resonate better or more specifically with one chakra than another. But when it comes to crystals and oils, they all come from the earth. And so if you know that you're not grounded, something from the earth is going to help you get grounded. And so a lot of times headaches are from too much energy going on up here. We want to get you grounded. I love Brianne saying she got the white helmet for the kids and it's worked. I love it. Is sleeping with your windows open allow spirit to enter your home without permission? I will tell you, you have way more control on what you allow than what people realize. And so people that have never, ever set parameters, like, for example, just because I work with spirit doesn't mean I want them behind me when I'm at home. When I come home, I want to be calm, like in my own place. If you sit there and you are like, oh, I'm afraid to open the window because I don't want a spirit to come in, and then you open the window and you're like, oh, I just don't want it to come, it's probably going to let him in. But if you're like, nope, I've got the black tourmaline in my corners, I've saged, I've got this, if you sit and kind of meditate and visualize a protective white light going on every external barrier of your home, you could sleep with the door open and you're going to have that spiritual kind of protection. The biggest thing to look out for is if you hear a double knock. that's usually going to be an indicator of spirit. People will not realize it, but they'll just blurt out, come in, and then they allowed this entity to come in. Now, your spirit guides are going to be around you, whether you want them in your home or not. Your loved ones, there's nothing that you're going to do that's going to stop grandma from paying you a visit. And so I actually encourage people to set more and more boundaries and parameters, because the clearer channel you have, the easier it is to access and the better connection that you're going to have. Nate, you're hilarious. There is one stone. It's a different version of the Argonite that I mentioned earlier, but it's actually color enhanced blue. For whatever reason, it's been known to help with hair loss. So do some research on that one and see where that goes. Man, where I lost my spot. Can seeing a vision really hurt? So I have seen a lot of stuff that I would rather not, which when I mentioned earlier, coming into this in my early 20s, I didn't understand what was going on. And a lot of the stuff that I was seeing, I felt was morbid, disturbing, like why, like how is this possible? And it hurt emotionally. However, it's not something, I don't even know how else to explain that. What you allow in, you will see. And so knowing that I don't like the blood, the guts, the gore, I remember doing a reading, for example, and this 16-year-old had appeared to me. I knew her age, I knew exactly what she looked like, and I knew she died in a car accident. And so to get validation or to go for some of that evidential type mediumship, I remember asking her, okay, show me how you passed. And she immediately went to go show me this accident. And I was like, no, don't want to see it. Show me what caused the accident. And then literally, it was like this tunnel vision went in and it showed me this little pile of gravel on the corner of an intersection. I'm like, perfect. So as she turned, she hit the gravel, spun out of control. The rest is history. However, that kind of shows like spirit knows this is what I won't want to look at, but this is what I'll accept. You teach them how to work with you. Yeah, so Sky is following up on the question about the mirrors. It's not anything that I've personally had the experience with, but since you've kind of given me the bug, it's something I want to dive into. Mirrors, I've always thought were from another dimension, a different side. Even as a kid, I remember thinking that it was like this parallel universe. And so back then, that's something that I would have never been taught. That's something that I would have just picked up on. And so, like I said, one of my best friends does not like mirrors either because they freak her out. What does right arm pain mean? Depending where at, whether it's joint, whether it's muscle, typically the right side of the body, I connect with relationships. And so it could be relationships that are intimate, friendship, families. And so think about that. Maybe you can pinpoint whether it's more of a nerve issue, whether it's more isolated to a specific area, and then kind of dig into that from there. So there's a few more questions here that are posted. I'm just going to try to blow through them and not cut anyone off. How do I get started with shadow work? So that is a really interesting question. So many times people avoid. Since you're asking, this is one of those things that you have to honor your light, but you also have to honor your dark side. So if you're an alcoholic, for example, which I know, Sarah, you're probably not, just a blanket statement here. People that are not able to deal with that shadow side, they want to go drink to avoid it. But once they start to make this conscious decision to face it, they quit going for the vice that blocks it out. Then they get shown what they're actually running from. And so when it comes to shadow work, everybody is a little bit different. But think about the stuff that happened all the way back into your youth that your mind is like, oh, we're not going to deal with that. We're going to put it in a cute little box, put it on the top shelf in the back of the closet, and we will never deal with that again. Shadow work is pulling all of those skeletons back out of the closet, addressing them in a weird way, thanking them for happening, because everything has played a role into where you are right now. And so if you're wanting to put on the shoes and try to become a healer and start using what you're learning to help people, all of these past experiences, you will one day be like, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. None of this was for none of this was for no reason. And so I remember a couple years ago, I was sitting with a friend of mine and it just hit me and I was like, it all made sense. And when everything made sense to me, every painful part of my past lifted. And it was like, to do the work that I'm doing, I love being able to sit across from somebody and be like, okay, this is what I get intuitively. But because I'm a human and because I went through XYZ, I can also relate. And I know that the experiences that life has dealt me has made me relatable to a lot of people. And it's weird that I can thank my traumas for this, but I'm like, wow, if it wasn't for this, I wouldn't be able to sit here and be like, if I can get through this, so can you. And it's motivating on a different level. So I don't dodge the shadow work. It will help you grow and come to life. Amanda says she's been getting a lot of headaches, pressure head. What I'm going to ask you to do is journal the headaches when you get them. It could be energy. It could also be dietary. I get two different kind of hits on this one. So the Schumann resonance, when we have a big spike, I have a headache the next day. And I've gotten to where it feels different. I know that it's not from food for me. I will go back. I will hop on Google. I will look for the latest like graph that shows a spike. And if you see one that's like off the charts and it coincides with the last 3 times that you've had headaches, then you know it's energy. Do what you can to stay hydrated. That is super important. Can angel visit you from human form in a traumatic situation? So I firmly believe, Lynn, in earth angels. It kind of goes with, I don't want to use the term shapeshifters because that's usually perceived as something that's negative, but it's no different than, you know, if you're sitting on a park bench and you're having this day and this stranger walks up and they sit and you're like, hey, you know, and then they just seemingly say exactly what you need to hear. Then they get up and they walk away. That's probably one of those kind of earth angels. They totally, I lost my train of thought here looking on here. The next question was, your candle's flickering. What does that mean? So for me, I know energy is here. I'm obviously using a lot of energy doing this. There's probably a lot of energy around here. Typically when I am calm, meditative, at peace, I get a straight flame. And so when I'm able to kind of see what the difference is it's super interesting. Christina is asking, if you went to a medium, is it better to go to the same one every time or try other people? Listen to yourself. It's kind of like if you find someone you like to learn with, I'm going to tell you, go learn from them. When it comes to a medium, there are people that want to, like, they love their experience with me, for example. Like, oh, I want to come back next month. I'm like, well, why don't we give it a few months? Because there's not going to be a whole lot that changes. And if you want more of like a life coaching session, then I'll tell you, okay, what we're going to do is we're going to have you work on this, this, and this. And then if you want to come back next month, I'm going to make a note. Typically, I don't make notes. So I'm like, if I know you're coming back and we talked about this, I'm going to start off the next session by calling you out and say, this is what you said you were going to do. How did you do it? Da, 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 and kind of go for follow-up. If you find someone that you trust, I will tell you, go with them. However, there's a lot of readers that are coming to Life Day that I just cringe because they're not acting from integrity. They are listening to their ego and not insight. They're not having intuition. And as somebody who functions from passion, integrity, honesty, it makes me boil when people come in and they're like, oh, well, I had a reading with so-and-so, and they told me my life purpose was XYZ. I just cringe because that's one topic I'm like, nope, I will not go there, because even if, as an intuitive, I am 99% certain that Sky's life purpose is to be a hairstylist, and I tell you this, And she's like, ooh, I've never wanted to do hair a day in my life, but okay, I trust you, and you said that this would be my purpose. Then you spend all this money going to develop a skill, and then you're doing it, and you're not functioning from passion. People will take the advice of somebody to heart and then run with it, and then years later find resentment for that individual because they were wrong. Feel things out. If you can trust someone, go for that. But it's also good to try other people. I would never advise sticking with one person, because there are readers who are extremely manipulative, and they want you to come back because, oh, well, you just gave me your dead husband's name. Let me write this down. And then the next time they come back, oh, yeah, Bill is here. And, oh, Bill says he loves you and wants all this. I'm like, oh, gosh, like, some readers tell you what they want, what you want to hear, and that is not me. So I'll tell you what I get, and we go from there. So last question here. What is the difference in mediums and tarot card readers? So does each connect with spirit? So that's actually a really good question, Alicia. A psychic, as we talked earlier about the chakras, for example, each chakra is tied to a specific psychic ability. So if you're wanting to develop your psychic senses, I'd find out which one is strongest. To do the work as a medium, you have to have all of the psychic abilities. You then use the psychic abilities to connect and communicate with spirit. So each spirit, their energy is different. Sometimes I see them like that. Other times I don't see anything, and I'm like really trying to pay attention to what I'm hearing, what I'm knowing. And then if I have to open my heart, like, how does this person feel to me? A lot of readers will use, on the psychic side, the tarot cards as insight. I use my crystals on the psychic side to show me who you are, where you're at, where you're going, what holds you back, the big picture of where you're at, where you've been. And if we don't like the course that you're headed, we can then intervene with some free will and make different choices. I actually I put more faith in readers who use some kind of tool, because you as a consumer are going to know that this is their connection with spirit. They've got the system. People that don't use anything, unless they've been doing readings for the majority of their life, or they are seasoned, and are Sylvia Brown, for example, Rebecca Rosen, neither one of them sit there and have tools, but they have made their livelihood based on perfecting their skill. So many people that once they have this intuitive hit, they're like, well, I'm going to start doing readings. Without any kind of tool, they're listening to ego, they're not tapping in, and then they're probably doing more harm than good. Last question here. Do I speak the good and the bad in the reading? You betcha. I try to do what I can as a reader to make it a light experience. We can have the heaviest, hardest, grossest conversation, and I am still going to say things that hopefully keep your spirits high, so that it doesn't feel totally doom and gloom. Being passionate about the work that I do, I cannot sit there and tell you what you want to hear. And so if I have nothing but good in front of me and I have no reason to question, and you're doing the work on the bad, we probably don't need to talk about it. But it is literally such I take pieces from kind of all over, and every single reading is completely as unique as the person in front of me. So, alrighty, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thank you all so much for taking the time to sit with me again. All of you guys who ask questions, thank you. I would not be able to sit and ramble for slightly over an hour if it wasn't for you guys submitting these kind of questions. So I totally appreciate your time. I hope you enjoyed this. Most of you are probably already following me on Facebook. If you have questions that you want to ask, feel free to message. I will try to save some of them for probably the next Q&A that we do, which will be I want to say the second Wednesday in December. I should already have it up and planned. So I appreciate you guys' time. Thank you so much. And until next time, have a good one. Keep your vibes high and stay grateful. Have a good one.